Steve, you're getting salty.
Yes, indeed, Gretch. So far they've regulated trans fats and they've battled high calorie counts in fast food. But this time, New York City health officials are going national, issuing guidelines to restaurants and food manufacturers across the country to cut out salt levels down 25% over the next 5 years. But the big question is, should the government be able to decide how much salt is in our diets, what we really eat? Well, join us right now, here live in the studio, is nutritionist Carrie Glassman. She's the author of The O2 Diet. Good morning to you, Carrie.
Good morning.
And senior research analyst with the Center for Consumer Freedom, Justin Wilson, who's joining us from D.C. Good morning to you, Justin.
Good morning.
All right, Carrie, let's start with you. You think this is a great idea to have the food police tell us what we can and cannot eat salt-wise?
I do. Americans consume about double the amount of sodium they should. That increases our risk for high blood pressure, which increases our risk for heart disease. And they're not saying don't use a salt shaker.
Right.
They're just trying to control the amount of salt that we get in our diet that we don't even know we're getting, that we find in packaged processed food and in restaurants. So we don't know we're getting it. Let us take control. If you want to add some, then that's your choice.
Yeah,
but at least have the choice.
Sure, but they're saying let's cut it down 25% over the next 5 years, and yet the statistics show that we eat about twice as much salt as we should. So shouldn't they be cutting it in half?
Well, I think looking at it over 5 years and reducing it slowly that's at least a start, and it's a good
Baby
place
step.
to go.
All
Exactly.
Right. Justin, tell us why you feel that Carrie is wrong.
Well, I think Mayor Bloomberg fancies himself to be a big brother. You know, he's slowly but surely regulating New Yorkers' diet towards being just plain old bland. And I think it's just inappropriate for the government to mandate how much salt that we can eat, especially when you consider that not everyone needs to have a low-salt diet. In fact, only about 30% of people with high blood pressure actually need to reduce their salt intake. And the problem is that this is a one-size-fits-all policy for a very small proportion of the population, and then the rest of New Yorkers end up with bland food. I mean, I think if I was living in New York, I'd be stocking up on salt shakers. In fact, I brought my I Love New York salt shaker with me.
That's cute.
For that very reason.
Yeah, but Justin, you're not a nutritionist, and Carrie is, and she's nodding her head. You are so wrong, buddy.
First of all, there's many ways to flavor food without adding loads and loads of salt. You can use herbs and spices, and there's other ways to flavor food as well. And the other thing is, of course, they should be looking out for us. I mean, think about smoking laws. I mean, there is a place where we should be protected.
Salt is not smoking. Salt is not smoking
and
whatsoever.
You need a certain amount of salt. And you need a certain amount of salt. And I'm not saying salt
to asbestos.
But what I'm saying is, though, there could be at least a certain amount of control. Yes, people need a certain amount of salt. Salt is not the devil, but we do not need the amount that we're getting in packaged processed foods. And packaged processed foods and eating in restaurants is part of the way we live as a nation. So if you want to add more salt, use your salt shaker.
And that's why we have consumer choice, but at the same time, what you find is when people use the salt shaker, they have a tendency to over-salt the food. So if you're given a bland dish, you'll put more salt on it than if the chef had salted it properly. In fact, that's why, as this has come out, chefs across the city have all complained, and they say, look, salt brings out the flavors in food. Salt is one of these basic components, and salt was actually the reason why we created the generally recognized as safe designation for food.
Justin, there's one other component to that, and that is there are some critics of this who say, hey, look, we're getting closer to some sort of government-run health care, and the more they take over on our health care, the more they're going to crack down on the stuff we eat. First it was trans fat, then it's calories, now it's salt. Next thing you know, they're going to say, okay, if you drink too much, that could be bad. You could get into a car wreck, so we're going to limit you to 1 Schlitz a week.
I think there's a lot of people out there that would say they should keep the government out of their bedroom, and I'm the guy that says we need to keep the government out of our kitchen, too. I fear that as we get closer to having a healthcare system where everyone pays the cost, we're going to be able to justify, the way the folks on the other side do, more and more government intervention. And, in fact, that's what we see in Canada and the UK, where they say, well, obesity is costing us so much, so we need to stop it with government regulations. That's a real problem.
We're going to have to leave it right there. Justin Wilson and Carrie Glassman, we thank you both for a spirited debate on